Have you ever felt that quiet tension, that uneasy silence when you're alone? No distractions, no noise, just you and your thoughts. For most men, facing that silence feels uncomfortable, even terrifying. They run from it, often jumping from one relationship to the next or seeking constant external distraction, terrified of facing themselves and what might be revealed in that stillness. They cling to someone, anyone, just to avoid the perceived emptiness of being alone. But here's a powerful truth many miss. The man who has the courage to embrace that silence, not out of bitterness, but by conscious choice, transforms fundamentally. Because in that stillness, that quiet space away from the world's demands and noise, something powerful happens. The external noise fades away. The relentless pressure to impress others, to constantly prove your worth, to desperately seek external approval. It all begins to disappear. And what's left in its place? Clarity of mind, inner strength, and profound self-control. The longer a man walks this path alone, not out of fear or resentment towards others, but by deliberately choosing to understand and build himself, the more powerful he undeniably becomes. His mind sharpens, cutting through confusion and external noise. His standards rise, reflecting his increasing self-respect. His focus becomes relentless, directed towards what truly matters. This isn't about rejecting the possibility of love or connection altogether. It's about rejecting weakness, the weakness of needing constant external validation, the weakness of fearing your own company. It's about mastering yourself first, so that when you finally choose to let someone into your life or choose to build a relationship, it's not coming from a place of desperation, emptiness, or fear of being alone. It's coming from a place of power, wholeness, and deliberate choice. Today, in this video, we're going to uncover exactly why solitude isn't something to fear. It's the key to becoming unstoppable. Welcome to Stoic Way of Life. If you're ready to embrace the power of being alone and unlock your inner strength, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below sharing your biggest challenge when it comes to spending time alone. Let's dive in. Number 1. Breaking free from approval seeking. Most men, perhaps without even realizing it, live their lives chasing external approval. They subtly or sometimes overtly shape their words to avoid judgment or disagreement. They hide their true thoughts or opinions to keep the peace or be liked. They bend their personal standards and compromise their values, hoping to be accepted into a group or relationship. They text back faster than they truly want just to seem interested or available. They agree to things they don't actually believe in just to avoid conflict or confrontation. They say yes when every fiber of their being screams no, all because they're fundamentally terrified of being disliked, ignored, or forgotten by others. This constant striving for external validation is an exhausting trap, but a man who has embraced solitude, who has spent time confronting himself in the quiet, he breaks free from this debilitating trap. He no longer wakes up each morning with an anxious internal question echoing in his mind. Am I good enough? Do they like me? Instead, through self-reflection and building his inner world, he begins to ask a different, more empowering question. Do I respect myself? Am I living in alignment with my values? And that profound shift from seeking validation from others to building genuine self-respect from within changes everything. Because the moment you stop chasing external validation, that's the very moment you begin to command it naturally. When you no longer feel the desperate need to prove your worth to every person you meet, people paradoxically start noticing and respecting you without you having to exert effort. When you stop anxiously asking, am I liked by others? You start asking, am I proud of the man I am becoming? And that's the powerful paradox. The less you seek approval, the more it naturally finds you. Women, especially, sense this shift immediately. They can feel when a man is truly grounded, when he is calm, composed, and in control of himself, not because he's putting on performance to impress her, but because he is focused on something far greater and more stable. Himself, his growth, his purpose. That kind of quiet, self-possessed presence is profoundly magnetic. And here's why this leads to power. Most men are desperate to be chosen, by a woman, by friends, by a group. They jump through social hoops, soften their words to be agreeable, and shrink their personal standards just to gain acceptance, all in the hope that someone, anyone, will pick them and validate their existence. But a man who values himself, forged in the crucible of solitude, operates differently. He doesn't lower his voice or dim his light to fit in with the crowd. He doesn't trade his standards or compromise his integrity just to gain approval from others. He stands firm in his own worth. And that strength, that quiet, unshakable confidence born from self-respect, makes people, particularly women, pay attention. Because when you stop chasing validation, you become the man who is chosen for his authenticity. When you stop over-explaining or justifying yourself, you become the man who is respected for his clarity and boundaries. And when you no longer need someone to like you to feel okay, you become the man who is naturally admired for his independence and inner strength. That's real power, not arrogance or ego, but just a calm, quiet, unwavering belief in your own inherent worth. The kind of belief that makes people genuinely curious to know who you are beneath the surface. So, if you spend your life chasing approval, stop. Stop seeking external attention as your primary goal. Stop bending your standards to fit others' expectations. Stop shrinking yourself just to feel accepted by a relationship or a social group. Instead, step back into the silence and ask yourself one crucial question. Am I living in a way that makes me proud? Because when you focus intensely on building that internal foundation, on becoming a man of integrity, strength, and purpose that you can genuinely respect, the desperate need for external validation simply disappears. And the moment you stop needing approval from others, that's truly when you'll start to command it through your presence and character. Number 2, raising your standards with confidence. When you break free from the trap of approval seeking, something else powerful happens within you. Your mind clears from the fog of desperation. You are no longer driven by the need to be liked by everyone. So you stop bending, shrinking, and compromising your values, your time, and your energy just to keep people around. Any people, regardless of who they are or how they treat you. And in that newfound clarity, fueled by self-respect, your standards inevitably rise. This isn't about developing arrogance or becoming judgmental. It's born out of a deep, quiet recognition of your own value and a refusal to accept less than you deserve in your life and relationships. You stop tolerating people who consistently drain your energy without reciprocating. You recognize the friends who take more than they give, leaving you feeling depleted. You see the relationships that leave you feeling empty, anxious, or fundamentally unsatisfied. You spot the people who only seem to show up in your life when they need something from you. You see it all for what it is: noise, distraction, and disrespect. And you refuse to let that noise and those draining interactions distract you from your path or diminish your inner peace anymore. The same clarity and rising standard happen powerfully in your interactions with women. You stop chasing women who bring nothing of substance or value to your life. You recognize and disengage from the ones who play manipulative games, the ones who expect you to constantly prove your worth and chase them while offering little genuine connection or respect in return. You no longer waste your precious time and energy on shallow connections or relationships that lack depth and mutual respect, because you understand deeply now that your time is incredibly valuable. It is too valuable to be spent on things or people that don't genuinely move you forward, contribute positively to your life, or align with your core values. Instead, you become deliberate, selective, and powerful in your choices about who you let into your life. You know exactly what you want and deserve in a relationship, and perhaps more importantly, you know with unwavering certainty what you won't tolerate anymore. And this fundamental shift in how you approach people and relationships changes everything about your presence. Because when a man has clear standards rooted in self-respect, when he values himself enough to calmly and confidently walk away from people who consistently disrespect him or don't align with his values, his entire presence shifts. He doesn't get drawn into arguments or futile attempts to convince others. He doesn't beg anyone to stay or to see his worth. He doesn't play manipulative games in return. If a woman starts pulling away or testing him to see if he'll chase, he doesn't panic or pursue her harder. He calmly holds his ground. If someone disrespects him his time or his boundaries, he doesn't feel the need to over-explain or justify himself. He simply moves on, not with anger, not with bitterness, but with calm indifference, because he knows his value is not up for negotiation, and that quiet, unwavering knowledge is what makes him truly powerful. Most men are afraid to set clear, high standards in relationships because they are fundamentally afraid of being alone. They think, if I'm too strict, if I have too many requirements, no one will stay in my life. I'll end up alone forever. But the paradox, once again, is powerful. When you raise your standards, when you hold firm to your values and boundaries, people don't just walk away. Specifically, the wrong ones walk away. The selfish ones, the disrespectful ones, the manipulative ones, the ones who are never meant to genuinely value you or stay in your life long term anyway. But the right people, the people who are capable of genuine respect and connection, they step up, they recognize, and are drawn to the man who values himself. Because a man with clear standards, a man who carries himself with quiet strength and self-respect, commands respect from others without even having to ask for it. Women feel it. They can tell instinctively when a man isn't desperate, when he is perfectly willing and able to walk away rather than compromise his core values or settle for less than he deserves. And paradoxically, that is the kind of man they find themselves chasing. Because deep down, everyone respects a man who refuses to bend on what truly matters. So if you've been shrinking yourself to fit into relationships that don't truly fit you, if you've been tolerating people who drain your energy or disrespect you, if you've been chasing relationships that don't genuinely inspire or uplift you, stop. Step back into the silence and raise your standards. Because when you start living like a man who genuinely values himself, when you stop accepting less than you deserve in your life and relationships, you'll discover something incredible. You don't lose people. You just stop keeping the wrong ones around. Number 3, mastering emotional strength. Most men, lacking the practice of confronting themselves in solitude, tend to crumble under pressure. They react impulsively without thinking through the consequences. They snap when they are tested by others or by difficult circumstances. They panic when things don't go exactly their way, when plans fall apart, or when relationships face challenges. Why does this happen so frequently? Because they are fundamentally ruled by their unchecked emotions. Anger controls their words and actions. Fear controls their choices and limits their potential. Loneliness and the fear of being alone control their relationships, driving them to cling or settle. But a man who has spent time in the quiet space of solitude, who has mastered the art of being alone with his thoughts and feelings, he's different. He has faced his own darkest thoughts, sat with his insecurities and anxieties, wrestled with his fears, and through that process, he has begun to master them. And because of that difficult internal work, he no longer reacts impulsively like a man who is controlled by his feelings. Instead, he responds thoughtfully, deliberately. When someone attempts to provoke him or disrespect him, he doesn't flinch or react with immediate anger. He maintains his composure. When a woman pulls away or tests him, he doesn't panic, beg, or chase frantically. When life throws unexpected chaos or setbacks his way, he doesn't crumble or descend into despair, because his fundamental strength doesn't come from the fleeting approval or presence of others. It comes from within himself, from his cultivated inner resilience. And that kind of deep, unshakable emotional strength, that ability to remain calm and in control regardless of external turbulence. It is incredibly rare. Most men will never reach this level of emotional mastery, not because they are inherently weak, but because they refuse to sit alone long enough to build it. They constantly drown their fears, insecurities, and anxieties in noise, distraction, and superficial relationships. They bury their deepest insecurities in external validation and the presence of others. They avoid the silence at all costs, because the silence forces them to confront what uncomfortable or broken inside their own minds and hearts. But the man who has the courage and discipline to embrace that silence, to walk through the fire of internal confrontation without running, that man emerges stronger than anyone, including himself, might expect. He learns to pause before reacting impulsively. He learns to think clearly before speaking words he might regret. He learns to calmly walk away from disrespect or situations that compromise his well-being, not out of fear or avoidance, but out of a position of inner power and self-respect. And when you cultivate and carry that kind of calm presence, that steady, unshakable emotional control, something powerful happens in your interactions with others. People sense it, and they respect you deeply for it. Women sense it immediately. The quiet strength of a man who isn't easily swayed by her moods, her tests, or her mind games. A man who doesn't chase desperately, doesn't beg for attention, doesn't need anything from her or anyone else to feel complete, because he has already found that completeness within himself. Weak men fold under emotional pressure. They crumble when tested by adversity or social challenges. They trade their dignity and self-respect for a woman's fleeting attention or approval. But a man who has mastered his emotions, who is in control of his internal state regardless of external circumstances, he becomes almost untouchable. No insult from others can genuinely break his spirit. No manipulation can control his actions. No moment of rejection or loss can fundamentally shake his core sense of self, because he is no longer fighting for external approval or validation. He is standing firm, anchored in his own self-respect. And that's why emotional strength is arguably the greatest power you can possess. Because once you master yourself, once you are in control of your internal world, no one outside of you can take that power away from you. So if you're feeling desperate, if you're feeling emotionally out of control, if it feels like your emotions have been running your life and dictating your choices, step back, step into the silence, embrace solitude. Because the man who can face himself, the man who can walk the fire of solitude and self-confrontation without running or seeking escape, that man becomes a force no one can shake. And when you reach that point of inner mastery, you won't just survive the inevitable storms of life. You will learn to command them from a place of calm, grounded power. Number 4, unlocking laser-sharp focus. Most men in today's world live in a constant state of distraction. Their minds bounce frantically from one craving to the next, scrolling endlessly through social media feeds, chasing fleeting external attention, wasting countless hours on shallow conversations or activities that go nowhere and build nothing. Not necessarily because they consciously want to waste their lives, but because they have forgotten what true focus feels like, what it feels like to direct their mental energy powerfully toward a single, meaningful goal. But a man who steps away from this perpetual chaos of external stimulation and internal unrest, a man who embraces the clarity and quiet that solitude provides, he's fundamentally different. When a man stops wasting his valuable mental and emotional energy on empty relationships that drain him, when he no longer pours his limited time and attention into meaningless connections or the fruitless pursuit of external validation, his mind sharpens like a finely tuned blade. The mental fog that comes from constant distraction and external noise lifts. His thoughts become clear, purposeful, and directed. His priorities naturally come into sharp focus. Suddenly, he is no longer asking himself, "What should I do with my life? What am I supposed to be doing?" He knows with unwavering certainty exactly what matters most to him, his mission, his personal growth, his deepest purpose. While others around him are scrolling mindlessly, he is building something of substance. While others are chasing external validation or fleeting attention, he is sharpening his skills, honing his craft, mastering himself. While others are wasting their days and nights in unproductive distraction, he is stacking wins day after day, brick by brick, building a life of genuine power, discipline, and meaning. And here's the secret most people, lost in the noise, never learn. When your focus locks like a laser, when your mind is free from the constant internal and external noise of distraction and seeking approval, success doesn't just become possible. In your chosen endeavor, it becomes almost inevitable. Because focused attention is a superpower in a world that thrives on distraction. It's the man who has cultivated the discipline to sit down alone, away from the noise, and commit himself fully and consistently to his craft, his vision, his purpose. It is that man who becomes truly unstoppable in achieving his goals. This is why the man who embraces solitude and uses it to cultivate focus often rises faster and goes further than those who fear it. He's not wasting his time chasing people who don't genuinely respect or value him. He's not distracted by shallow relationships or social dynamics that drain his energy and pull him off course. Instead, every hour he might have once spent anxiously seeking approval or validation from others, he now redirects and invests powerfully into mastering his skills, deepening his knowledge, and building his future. Every minute he once wasted on mindless conversations or superficial interactions, he now pours into building his physical health, sharpening his mind, and advancing his purpose. And when you stack those focused hours, that directed energy, day after day, week after week, something powerful happens not just in your work, but in your very being. You begin to move differently through the world. Your presence changes. It becomes more grounded and intentional. Your energy becomes stronger, more concentrated. People start to notice you, not because you're begging for their attention or performing for their approval, but because you have demonstrably built yourself into a man they simply cannot ignore due to your competence, discipline, and clarity of purpose. Women, in particular, feel this shift. They sense when a man is genuinely driven, when his mind is locked in on something greater and more meaningful than temporary pleasure, distraction, or seeking their approval. And suddenly, the same people who might have once overlooked you or taken you for granted, they are drawn to your presence and your energy, not because you chase them or try to convince them, but because you become a man who no longer needs them to validate his existence or fill a void. This is a profound power of focus, a power that is most effectively cultivated when you step away from the noise and distraction and start building something real and lasting within yourself and your life. So, if you've been feeling lost, scattered, or as though you've been spending too much of your life chasing what doesn't truly matter, step back. Step into the silence. Embrace solitude as your training ground. Because a man who can sit alone, calmly, focused, and disciplined, fully committed to his mission and purpose, that man doesn't need to chase success in the external world. Success, attracted by his cultivated focus and presence, will find him. So, what do these 10 female weaknesses really reveal? That women, just like men, are drawn to powerful presence, emotional stability, and self-control. Not the loud, flashy kind of power, but the quiet, grounded strength of a man who knows who he is. A man who doesn't flinch under pressure. A man who lives by a code, not by approval. The truth is, attraction isn't about tricks or tactics. It's about who you are when nobody's watching. Master your emotions. Chase a mission bigger than yourself. Learn to walk away. And cultivate presence that speaks louder than words. When you embody these principles, you stop chasing women and start attracting them. Not because you're playing games, but because you become the kind of man she doesn't want to live without. If this message resonated with you, don't just listen. Live it. Subscribe to Stoic Guide for more practical wisdom on masculinity, attraction, and inner strength. Hit the like button. If you're ready to become the grounded, magnetic man you were meant to be, share this with a brother who needs to hear it. And remember, stay calm, stay grounded, never chase. Solitude isn't emptiness. It is where genuine strength is forged. Every hour spent in the quiet reflection of solitude sharpens your mind, offering clarity away from the world's noise. Every moment spent alone, confronting yourself and your fears, strengthens your resolve and builds inner resilience. Every second you resist chasing external validation, or what's easy and distracting, is a second powerfully invested in building something unshakable within yourself. The longer you embrace solitude as a tool for growth, the clearer your vision for your life becomes, the stronger your mind and emotions grow, and the more powerful and magnetic your presence feels to others. And when you finally choose to let someone into your life, or choose to pursue a relationship, it's not coming from a place of lack, need, or desperation. It's born out of conscious choice, from a position of abundance and wholeness. Because by then, you're not looking for someone to complete you. You understand that you are already complete within yourself. So don't fear the silence. Embrace it. Because a man who can sit alone, calm, focused, and disciplined, anchored in his own self-mastery, is a man no one and nothing can truly break. And when you master that level of inner strength, you don't just survive life's inevitable storms. You learn to command them from a place of grounded power. This journey of embracing solitude and building inner strength is fundamentally Stoic. Stoicism teaches us to focus relentlessly on what is within our control, our thoughts, our judgments, our desires, our aversion, and our actions, and to cultivate our character and inner virtues above all else. It teaches us to find peace and fulfillment from within, independent of external circumstances or the opinions and presence of others. Solitude is the perfect training ground for this. By sitting in silence, you practice controlling your thoughts, not being run by anxiety, mastering your emotions, building composure, clarify your values, raising standards, focusing your mind, unlocking purpose, and choosing your path deliberately, relationships on your terms. This application of Stoic wisdom in modern life builds the unshakable inner foundation that makes you powerful, regardless of whether you are single or in a relationship. When you master yourself, you gain true freedom and power that no external factor can diminish. Thanks for joining the Stoic Heart today and exploring the transformative power of solitude. Stay strong, stay grounded, and until next time, keep cultivating your inner strength. We'd love to hear your thoughts or suggestions for future topics. So drop a comment below. Specifically, which of the 5 benefits of solitude we discussed resonates most with you right now? And what is one small action you can take this week to embrace more intentional solitude? Share your insights below. See you in the next video on Stoic Way of Life.